Hello, welcome to Orphan Espresso. I'm Doug,
I'm Barb.
and this is a Lido 3 manual coffee grinder. I'm going to demonstrate disassembly and reassembly of this coffee grinder. The same techniques and methods apply to the Lido 2 and the Lido E. But this is my example, the Lido 3. I'm going to do this with three tools: a ball driver, a standard 2.5 millimeter L key, hex key, and the third tool is gravity. I say disassembly and reassembly because I hesitate to even use the word alignment, because every time it seems that someone makes a bad cup of coffee, they begin obsessing about the alignment of their grinder, even if it's a very expensive German grinder that runs on electricity, known as the EK43, kind of a top of the line. But this obsession is perhaps unhealthy, but let's just say we're going to disassemble and reassemble this grinder. First thing I do is I use the ball driver. Proper tool use is I go firmly into the socket, vertical to the screw shaft. This means you don't wear out that socket if you do this quite frequently. Under normal usage, I never do it, but that's just me. Set this aside, remove that. I'll go ahead and take off the jar, set it aside. Now, I'm leaving this washer and screw in place for right now, because this is, actually it's a different reason you'll be taking this ring off, but it doesn't involve anything, it doesn't involve the A word. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and I'll take first, using the 2.5 millimeter. Don't use anything but a metric 2.5 millimeter on these screws. Don't use an SAE, don't Imperial. It's close, but well, it's not close enough. You'll damage the screw heads. Insert it squarely, make sure it's all the way down, and loosen a half turn or so. Turn it around. Find where the tool enters squarely into the socket.
And that's not a specialized tool. That's available at most any hardware store.
Yep. Very
inexpensive.
Okay. These, I've now broken the torque free. That's all I've done with this hex. Now I can use this basically at any angle and just spin them out, because there's really no danger of damaging the screw heads or damaging any part of the grinder. I'm just spinning them all the way out of the socket that they're driven into. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now put my finger on top of the axle and I lift to make sure they're all free from the threads, and they are. I lift this off. Now what we have is the burr attached to what we call the ring stack, and it is held in by the washer here on the bottom. Just to demonstrate, I'll remove this part here. You would remove the washer and the bolt if you only want to remove the adjustment ring. You spin that off for cleaning or inspection or whatever you want to do. Now, what we have here is the cone burr is on the axle. The ring burr sits in a recessed area that's exactly the shape of the burr, but there's a slight bit of movement of that ring burr inside the channel. Now, when you do this, make sure you note the orientation of the ring burr. It can be in this direction, or it can be turned around 180. On your grinder, if you need to mark it, put a mark with a marker here on the body, so you don't confuse the position of that burr. It's important in maintaining the original zero marking. So I'll just show you how this is. I'll lift this out and I'll set this in exactly the same orientation. Now I have this part. Okay, there's a nylon washer here. This is one of the spacer that it's part of the drive mechanism. This washer It is installed here to avoid wear of the metal parts against one another, and also to prevent any squeaking or this type of behavior. So make sure that washer's there. It doesn't have to be snug, but just make sure that it doesn't fall off when you reassemble it. This goes in first. My ring burr goes back on in the same orientation. The flat side's here, okay? Now, if you look at the top surface here, you'll note that there's a number of marks that have to do with the die casting process. And there are 2 circles with numbers inside of them. And in the center of those 2 circles is a threaded hole. To the left of the circles is a rectangular divot, like a dimple. That's a key. It corresponds to a key found on this part right here. So these 2 need to be in alignment when you reassemble. I reassemble the grinder with the mark, the reference mark on the burr carrier. I point that toward me. Now I have the 2 numbered circles. Those are date marks for die casting. I have the 2 numbered circles in front of me and the rectangular depression, the key, to the left at about 7:30. Now I take the hopper and I face the logo toward me, the screw in the center, the hex key I test, it's over on the left. I'm in the proper orientation to reassemble. And just slide it down. Now I start the screws, just catch a thread. Just get them started so there's no cross threading. Make sure they're going in smoothly and that you haven't cross threaded the steel screws into the aluminum body, creating some problems. Now I'm going to install the handle. You'll note that there's a D-shaped hole and you just align the 2 parts of the D. I'm going to use the handle as a tool when I
Finish the assembly.
Okay, now I'm in this position. I turn it upside down. This is where gravity comes into play. The adjustment ring should be turned until it just catches a thread. So the whole mechanism is very loose. Now I can do this. What I'm doing with this movement is the cone burr is now upside down and it's forming a V. And it forces into the ring burr, and the V pushes the ring burr into the appropriate position so everything is in alignment. Now, this is a check. When holding it upside down, the burrs are meshed together. They're touching together, they're centered, and I check to see that my bearings are smooth and that I don't have any ugly sounds from the burr, no surprises. It's nice and smooth and quiet, meshing. Now, once I've determined this, I have everything in alignment. The ring burr has been moved into its proper position. I tighten one of the screws. I'm right-handed, so I tighten the screw on this side of the grinder. I tighten it down snugly. Then I turn the grinder completely over and I tighten the opposite screw. That's a beautiful tell. What's happening here is that when you tighten only one of the screws, you create a bend in the system. It binds and it holds the mechanism up. When you snug up the opposite screw, it straightens out the alignment and bang, it falls down. So that's just a really nice tell. It makes you feel like you're doing something precise and worthwhile.
And a new grinder might not do that as smoothly as you just did. This grinder's been in use for a year now.
How many kilograms of coffee have we ground with this thing?
I couldn't count them.
Right, and the burr is well broken in, the bearings are well meshed with the axle. We build them a little tighter to begin with so they all grind into a really nice formation. So I've snugged up these 4 bolts in an X pattern. I went across and then I turned it and I did the other 2. So now all 4 are snug, but not torqued down. For that, for the torquing, I use the L key, okay? And once again, make sure that it's, you once again come in an X pattern, and you feel, you do this by feel. You're now a Swiss watchmaker. You feel, you've done this so many times, and oh crap, I forgot to put my glasses on. I've done this so many times that,
Admit it, you could do it blindfolded.
blindfolded, I think so at this point, but I've snugged up all 4 of these using the L key, and then I go back to check it because, you know, I really don't revisit this, you know, very often at all. Once it's aligned, once it's all set up, oops, it's good to go for a long time. So I make sure all of these 4 are fairly even and snug. Now what happens is that the exterior of the ring burr that you saw is now held in place by the part with the little rectangular divot in it, okay? So the final step to do is, I'll spin this down a little bit, it makes it a little easier to do, is that I'll go ahead and I'll install the retaining washer. Once again, I can use this because I have an open field here. I can stay vertical. I make sure I don't damage any screws this way. Tighten it. Now I come around and I check. My 0 is still quite good. I mark back, still quite good. It's in the same place. I haven't rotated the burr in some way. That's my mark. And I have finished assembling the grinder. It's very simple. Take your time, use the tools properly. As far as I know, it's very difficult to break something. It's mostly improper tool use on those screws that can give you problems. Same procedure with the 2 and the E and any other Lidos that pop out of the woodwork. It's the same procedure, same burr, same procedure, same everything. So I hope this has been helpful, and happy grinding.